What is up, everyone? It is Monday, May 8th. I think this might be my first Monday show ever. I'm here after a fun and busy weekend of sports with my guys JT and DC. We had a big UFC card. We had the Kentucky Derby, lots of baseball, NBA playoffs, so on and so forth. JT, how was your weekend, man?
Fantastic weekend. Had my own game, lots of exciting baseball. We got to see a really high-level baseball series here in Atlanta with the Orioles and the Braves. The Braves, of course, taking 2 of 3. They get Orlando Arcia back, so that's nice. And just some bad baseball. I mean, some really bad bullpens. The impact of the shift is really immeasurable on some of these starting pitchers and low strikeout pitchers in particular. And then, Angels bullpen and the Reds bullpen look just about as bad as the Oakland A's bullpen, which sets up well, at least when you think about the Astros going into Anaheim this evening. So great weekend. Week is off to a very busy but a great start. Excited to pick some winners. But as always, guys, we won't be picking shit if the likes don't get up. And this is just a disgustingly hurtful way to start the week on a Monday. We're here early. We're working. I've already broken down the slate. I'm excited to talk about it, but 40 likes just isn't going to do it for me.
Yeah, we're going to have to get those likes up, DC. Anything stand out for you over the weekend? How was your weekend? I did see this morning Pittsburgh, man, they really got a reality check in Tampa over the weekend. They've lost 7 straight, but it feels like everyone in that division's kind of scuffling. You know, the Brewers, the Cardinals can't get a win. What do you think?
Yeah, it's we're just over a month into the baseball season now, so like 20% of the way there, maybe not even quite there. So a lot of baseball left to be played. I do think, one of the things we kind of predicted before the season, the new rules, it seems like have kind of divided the haves and have-nots, both in terms of teams and individual players, even more so, where we've seen, just some amazing performances by certain players, certain teams, obviously the Braves, the Rays, for me, the top 2 teams there in the NL and the AL, and then also just some horrific performances. Obviously, the A's have kind of been a laughing stock all season, but man, there have been some other bad teams, some surprising ones. The Cardinals, like you mentioned, now saying how big of a contracted Wilson Contreras to get? 100 million, 80 million, something like that. 5-year deal, and now they're saying he can't be the catcher anymore because their pitchers all suck, basically. Kind of seems like they knew how he wasn't a great defensive catcher when they signed him, but yeah, just a lot going on with baseball. That's kind of how it goes. It is a very long season. Of course, you don't have to pay attention to all that. I know a lot of people, are just into the DFS streets, but the 3 of us, this is kind of like a little bit of a baseball purist show, right? We're kind of long-term baseball fans even before the DFS street. So yeah, fun to do a show with you 2 guys. I know you guys are following baseball in general as closely as I am.
Yeah, there's a big series that's actually off today's slate. Orioles coming off of the series in Baltimore or in Atlanta. Now they're home against the Rays. That's a fun one in the AL East. We saw Boston play well over the weekend. They're 8-2 in their last 10. That's kind of surprising. I didn't think Boston was going to put it together, but their offense has just been great. So we got an 8-game slate tonight. Let's start with pitching. There are a lot of options, DC. I feel like the last couple of shows that we've done have been really good pitching slates. We have another deep one here, at least. What do you like up top? There are a lot of options above 8K. Why don't you break those down for us here?
Yeah, I think you described it well. Just overall, it's a deep pitching slate. I do think there's a lot of different guys you can go to, but there's really only one guy that I feel totally confident in here, and that's Zach Gallen. I know he had a little bit of a hiccup in his last start, but man, he's been really good. What do you have? How many straight? Like 28 straight innings, something like that. Scoreless inning streak prior to his last start. Yes, he gave up the 3 earned runs against Texas, who, by the way, has been crushing right-handed pitching in general. But even in that start, 6 Ks, no walks, pitched pretty well overall. Final line wasn't great, but yeah, he gets to host Miami. I kind of expect Gallen to get right back on the horse, and I don't know, wouldn't be surprising at all, I don't think, to see him start up a new scoreless inning streak tonight. So 10.2K is the highest priced pitcher on the board at DraftKings. I think rightfully so. I think he personally, is almost a little bit underpriced, especially compared to the rest of these guys. I mean, Dylan Cease, I've never really been a huge Cease guy. I know the strikeouts can be there. This matchup looks, pretty good, frankly, against Kansas City. But 3 rough starts in a row? I mean, even back to 4. Yes, 2 of them against Tampa Bay, but, Minnesota hasn't been great. Cease, I've always talked about it. It's just too many walks. The control issues make him a volatile pitcher from start to start. He is one of those guys. I kind of have him in the Blake Snell bucket, where I like playing him when nobody else is on him, and maybe he's coming off a couple bad starts. But when other people like to play Dylan Cease, which I think people will be on him tonight, I do try to go elsewhere if there's other reasonable options, which there are certainly tonight. Nestor Cortez, I know it's the A's. I don't love this spot for him, 9,400. I just don't feel like he's a $9,400 pitcher. So I'm kind of out on that. I do like Logan Gilbert, 9K against Texas, but again, not a perfect matchup by any means. And then actually probably my preferred pairing overall with Zach Gallen down here at 8,100 is Anthony DeSclafani, who has been, I think, kind of quietly having a very strong year, an ERA almost down to 2, a whip well below 1. And if you look back to, 2021, DeSclafani was actually really good for the Giants. He basically had a lost season last year, but he appears to be back to, or perhaps even better than that 2021 form. He gets a really nice matchup here against the anemic Washington Nationals team, pitching in that big park in San Francisco. You get a little bit of a discount on him at 8,100. And he's proven he can go deep into games. I mean, last 5 games, innings pitched, 8, 6, 5, 6 2/3, 6 1/3, been up over 100 pitches in 2 of those 5. Seems like they trust him. Matchup's good. Should be able to prevent damage. So, yeah, I think he is safe. Maybe not the most upside in the world, but when I'm looking at this pitching pool, I don't necessarily think you need a 30-point score, right? Like, I think Zach Gallen's got a pretty decent chance to get there. I'll be surprised if anybody else gets to 30 on this particular slate. So I do like the savings with DeSclafani. From where I'm sitting right now, a couple hours before lock, that Gallen-DeSclafani pairing is kind of what I'm leaning toward at the moment.
Yeah, lots of options up top here, JT. DC went through a bunch of them. I think Cortez, at least when I was doing the playbook earlier, was coming out as the highest owned on the slate, him and Gilbert. What are your thoughts on those 2 guys being high owned and how you're going to deal with that? And then just this upper tier of pitching in general as a whole?
Yeah, so I'll start with Zach Gallen. When I look at this slate, the matchup overall, especially the fact that it looks like his ownership, to your point, Steve, is going to be a little bit depressed. It's not going to be, no ownership, but it's going to be less than Cortez, at least projected. He's a near lock button for me on this slate in this matchup with what he's done. And I think we're going to see more of those slates. Saturday, I felt we had a slate where Spencer Strider was clearly heads and tails above anybody else, lock button. And, we got you 25 points. I think he was the 2nd or 3rd highest scoring pitcher on the slate, but he brings you a measure of safety. And that's what I feel about Zach Gallen here, is where there's 37, 40-point upside. But even if you get that 25, 26, I think that's the floor here in this matchup against the Marlins. So near lock button for me. Cortez at 9,400. I go both ways. I'm definitely not going to be exposed to him at 40%. But the way he pitches in this matchup with a lot of these younger guys on the A's, it could be a matchup where you see some trickery and he gets them with the off-speed stuff. It also could be a matchup where a guy like Brent Rooker stays hot and hits a couple out of Yankee Stadium. So I could see both ways where you play some maybe 2-man mini sacks against the highest owned pitcher on the slate, but also maybe he does have the upside here. Don't know exactly when I'm going to go with him, but definitely nowhere near Zach Gallen. Gilbert, I like Gilbert. I like his talent. 9K against this Texas team. 2 ways to look at it. One, they just came out of Anaheim. Now they face an actual major league pitcher. But do I really want to pick on this team with the way they're swinging the bats right now? He could pitch just fine and still only get you 15 or 16 points. You drop down a little. DC mentioned Anthony DeSclafani. His underlying numbers give me a little bit of pause with the amount of runners that have been left on base, with the BABIP in play. He's not a high strikeout pitcher, and you're going to see 5 or 6 left-handed bats in this Washington lineup that strikes out 15%. 15% of the time against right-handed pitching. So maybe he makes the pool, but maybe he doesn't. But two pitchers I do have interest in. I don't always have interest in these two guys, but Marcus Stroman has been pitching well. He gets a Cardinals offense that up until yesterday, when they got the benefit of Alex Faedo, who's been close to out of the game, and the really deep pieces of the Tigers bullpen, a ridiculous performance by Paul Goldschmidt, they have not been doing a whole lot lately. They get terrible weather in Wrigley. They get the wind blowing in. Stroman at 8,800, I think he can get you 20 points. Maybe you get lucky, you get a win bonus that somehow Chicago scores the 2 runs instead of St. Louis that are going to likely be scored in this game. And I don't mind Miles Michaelis at 6K. So it's a pretty small pool for me. I do think, I'll mention one other guy, just because he's going to be very low owned. He started this year off looking more like the pitcher we thought he was going to be 2 or 3 years ago. That's Freddie Peralta, 8,600. Really tough matchup against the Dodgers. But remember, last couple of years, when the Dodgers play the Padres, emotions get up, tensions get up. These are very, very high stress, high pressure series because of the way that the Padres now feel that they're challenging the Dodgers wanting to show them that they're still a little kid in the schoolyard. And what we've seen from the Dodgers is the game after those series against the Padres has been a letdown. So I am going to have some Freddie Peralta in my pool this evening.
And I think they play the Padres again this weekend, this upcoming weekend. So kind of a bit of
a
lot
of excitement to come and play the Brewers at home when you've just played the Padres. That stadium was packed. The games, I think one of the games went into extra innings. It might have been last night. I was watching that game for a while. Now you come back after Sunday Night Baseball, make the trek home. You know they're coming back in this weekend. Maybe it's an opportunity for a letdown here.
Yeah, I'll give my quick thoughts on the guys up top. I agree with you guys on Gallen. I think that he's by far and away the best play here. I think there should be more of an 800 gap between him and the rest of these guys. I think Gallen's the clear best play. Cortez and Gilbert, I'm going to have some just because I play 20, but I'm definitely going to be less than the field on those two. The guy that I have a bit of interest in, I think he's going to get lost in this slate, is Hunter Brown, just because those two guys are going to be so owned. He had a start last time out where, the control just wasn't there. That is his issue. But when he's not walking guys, we've seen the upside. He's got 3 starts of 25 plus DK in his 6 or 7 so far this year. And they were all against tough offenses. They were against the Rays, they were against Texas, and at the Twins. So, he's done well in tough matchups. The Angels are much weaker against right-handed pitching. When I was doing the playbook, I saw him under 5%. I think he's way too talented to be under 5% when guys like Nestor are the same price. So I have interest in him mainly for those reasons there. Like the Stroman call, I have him in the playbook. JT, it's just miserable hitting weather here in Chicago. It was really nice all weekend, and it's going to be nice starting Wednesday again. But some came through. It's in the low 50s, and I just got the update. Gusts up to 25 blowing in. So that game total has been falling all day. I think it might even hit 6.5. So if that is the case, we've got to have interest in the pitchers here. So I'll go back to you, DC. Anyone under 8K in your pool tonight? There's about 10 guys there. JT mentioned Michaelis at 6K. What do you think?
Yeah, so Michaelis does make sense. I agree with that. Mostly it's a weather play, right? It's a regular field weather play with Michaelis. He hasn't been good. He's never been a strikeout pitcher. I do think he's going to be the guy that most people go to in this cheaper range of pitching. I don't think a ton of people are going to go down here. You don't have to today. Like, there's not that many good hitting spots either. So I do think, people are going to try to probably get the safety of the higher end pitchers for the most part on this slate. So I do get the Michaelis call. There is 2 cheaper guys down here, though, 2 lefties that I do like a little bit. Partly, at least on one of them, JP Sears. I think you're going to get massive leverage against the field if you do play him. He's 6,300 on DraftKings. I think a lot of people are going to stack the Yankees today, which, the totals are very modest. Do the Yankees have the highest team total on the slate? I think behind the D-backs and the Giants. It's close. They're all sitting kind of around 5. I've liked what I've seen for the most part with JP Sears this year, coming off a good start against a Seattle team that really hits lefties well in general. What he put up 23 fantasy points in that one, would have been 27 if they could have held on for the win. Oakland obviously has the horrible bullpen, so as long as he's pitching decently well, they'll let him go. You see that in the pitch counts, right? He's right around 90 to 100 pitches every time. So when we're looking at, cheap pitchers that I think are worth rostering in DFS, there's a few criteria that I want him to meet. Obviously, the salary is a big one. I want it to be on a slate where I'm not super fearful of big performances from the high-price guys. I prefer it if they're going up against a team, frankly, that a lot of people are going to stack up, which I think is also true today. I want them to be able to go 6 or 7 innings if they're on their day, right? If things are going their way for them. I think that's true of JP Sears. And I think this Yankees team total, of course it's inflated what it would normally be because the bullpen behind JP Sears is so bad, but that really doesn't affect him all that much outside of, if an inherited runner scores or something. So I'm not really scared of this Yankees lineup. We've talked about it all season, Steve. It's just not a lineup to fear right now. Listen, if Judge and Stanton were in there against the lefty Sears, of course, and I get it is probably the best hitting environment weather-wise on the slate. Like, I get the arguments against him, but I don't think anyone's using him. I think he's got a chance to put up 15 to 20 here, and I will have some exposure to JP Sears. And then the other guy, Braxton Garrett, coming off a negative 16 fantasy point performance against the Braves. That was the second game that he faced the Braves in a row. The first one he actually pitched well against them. Prior to that, he had scored, between 15 and 17 in 3 straight starts, 5,600 against this Diamondbacks team that, they're dangerous, but, I don't think it's that great of a lineup. I have some faith in Braxton Garrett, just kind of as a longer-term play. Again, just super cheap. I wish there was better bats to spend on, right? Like, there's not that much to get to that I want to go cheap. I don't think I would double punt, but I'm willing to use both Garrett and Sears. Both are going to be super low owned. Both should give you 90 plus pitches. And obviously it could go south, but on this particular slate, I do think it's worth a stab.
Yeah, I have a good buddy who plays a bunch of DFS. He tried to talk me into Sears in that Seattle game. And of course, he had the "I told you so" after that. He looked good. And
I think I've watched most of the starts. I think he normally does look pretty good, honestly. So
yeah. And I think the Yanks will be popular. Judge comes back tomorrow, so last chance to play a lefty against him probably. JT, we talked about Michaelis down under 8K. Do you have any interest in anyone else down here? We've got Gonsolin cheap, but he really hasn't looked sharp yet since coming back. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll probably wait on Gonsolin. You saw last night, even though Urias was pitching fairly well, pulled at 86 pitches with the bullpen healthy. It's probably going to be Kershaw. Even May, I think the night before, he was pitching well. He gets pulled early. I think Kershaw is really the only guy right now that has a leash that you can trust on the Dodgers rotation. And not really much else. Hunter Brown at 9,200, I think is worth getting above the field. You're right on that ownership projection, 5%. But I still feel pretty confident in the other guys that I mentioned that I probably won't stray too far away from them tonight.
All right, sounds good. That is pitching. Like JT said, you got to hit the like button or he's going to yell at you. I'm much nicer on these shows than JT is, so I don't have to sick them after you guys. So let's we got eight games of bats to get through, so let's start on up. Let's go right back to that Oakland Yankees game, and I'll go right back to you, JT. Bats here, we saw Oakland have a really nice weekend in Kansas City. Now they're going to Yankee Stadium. They've been hitting lefties pretty well, especially lately. Do you have any interest in any bats here on either side? JT, that's for you.
Sorry, I couldn't. I didn't hear what you were asking. We're talking about Yankees and A's.
Yes.
So look, the Oakland A's, notwithstanding, I agree with DC that JP Sears. Listen, JP Sears a couple of years ago, and even last season when the Yankees would bring him up for spot starts, he was a team RPS guy. We were all on him. We were playing him. He pitched well generally. But the A's have made the Cincinnati Reds and the Kansas City Royals look like World Series contenders. So, I mean, it's just hard even, and they're not, I'm not showing the Yankees at crazy ownership. They don't have Coors level ownership. They've got about 13%. Some guys will have a little bit more than that. And with the Yankees, you want to avoid the guys like Kiner Falefa, and, really he's probably the main one. But yeah, I think the Yankees make some sense. And like I talked about when we were talking about Nestor Cortez, I do think one-offs here or two-offs on, 2-3 mans, whatever, on Oakland makes some sense. Not going crazy with it just because of some of the power that these guys have shown. Look, I mean, this could be another season where you see at the trade deadline, 3 or 4 of these guys are moving to contenders. Brent Rooker is not ending his season as a member of the Oakland Athletics the way that he's hitting the ball at this point. And Brent Rooker is a Team DC guy. DC was on him when he came up with the Twins, moved around a bit, and now he's finally showing that power and plate discipline that he's had. And the other thing about the A's, they're not nearly as bad against left-handed pitching as they are against right-handed pitching. The strikeout are down against lefties. So, yeah, I think this game makes some sense for bats on both sides.
Yeah, and that Oakland lineup is really skewed righty. I think they got 9 righties in the lineup tonight, DC. Cortez, expected ERA over 5 against righties this season. Any interest in some Oakland one-offs or some mini stacks here? What do you think?
I do think they're better as one-offs. Yeah, mini stacks work too. Like that, 3, 4, 5 there in the middle. I mean, Cortez last year, like this time last year, right? No one really even know who Nestor Cortez was. He kind of had that magical season a little bit out of nowhere, but like he's never really had great stuff, right? And even last year, kind of lived like a lot of fly balls caught, just people not able to square him up. But that's a dangerous way to live. It's a very small margin for error, and it kind of seems like he's doing it again a little bit, right? Like I still think, the 4.91 ERA, like that's closer to who I think Nestor Cortez is long term than what we saw last year. Maybe something in between, but I think he's going to give up a fair share of home runs to right-handed power bats, especially when it's pretty good hitting weather here. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see the A's honestly take this game. Rooker, Laureano, I think would be my 2 favorite, but Aguilar I think is good. Shea Langoliers, I think it's one of the better catcher plays. Esteury Ruiz with his speed, you can always go in that direction if you want to. So yeah, I'm actually more on the Oakland side of this game than I am the New York side, which I won't end up saying that very often. So we'll see.
Nice to hear. I bet Oakland first 5 this morning when I saw this matchup. Let's keep it moving here. We'll go back to you, DC. We got the White Sox in Kansas City to start the week. The White Sox blew up randomly yesterday. They killed, I think it was Ashcraft in Cincy. We saw a ton of runs scored in this Royals Park over the weekend. It's still somewhat warm there. It's not in the 90s like it was on Saturday, but I'm seeing high 70s, which on this slate probably rivals New York for the warmest on the slate. We do have the lineups out here. It's Cease against Zach Greinke. What do you think?
Yeah, I think obviously more people are going to go to the White Sox side of this one. I get that. Like you said, 80 degrees in Kansas City. Not nearly as good of weather as we saw Saturday and Sunday, where it was, 85, 90 with winds blowing out. Now the wind's blowing in. But still, especially on this slate, a pretty reasonable place to hit. Cease, I kind of always have the same approach to him. If I'm going against him, I want to go with the full stack because the thing you're really betting on is that he's super wild and can't make it deeper into the game. You get into the bullpen. You pointed out last week, Steve, the White Sox bullpen has now been among, I don't know if they're still below the A's in team ERA, but they've been absolutely awful. And Cease is a guy who can struggle and get pulled after 3, 4, 5 innings. Maybe he gives up 3 or 4 runs and the Royals continue to do damage. So I don't think a Royal stack here, very contrarian, is the craziest idea. And then, the White Sox, I need to see it a little bit more from them other than just the one blow-up game, right? It's been an offense that we've been targeting with pitching. I do think the return of Tim Anderson kind of makes a big difference for this team. But now, Eloy Jimenez, what do you have, an appendectomy or something? He's out 2 months.
6 weeks, yeah.
It's always something with the White Sox. But I don't plan to go to this team all that much, the White Sox. I'll have a Royals stack or two in my lineups, but not a game that I'm the craziest about pitching or hitting wise.
Yeah, same. Yeah, the White Sox keep just stepping on Legos every chance they get. The back half of this lineup, JT, for the White Sox, pretty weak. They end with Hanser Alberto, Elvis, and Adam Hazley. Any interest in bats here on either side?
No, not really. Nice day for the White Sox yesterday, but I mean, they rarely are able to string this together several days in a row. And just sort of kind of a rule that I play with when these teams that really don't have great offenses all of a sudden break out, it's just a mistake to go right back to them. I'm showing them as being popular today. Probably a lot of recency bias, or, oh, look what they did to the Reds. Now they come in and they face the Royals. Well, Zach Greinke at home has been a completely different pitcher than he's been on the road. And I just don't love this spot here. On the other side, Dylan Cease, really odd. Beginning of the season, completely shuts down the Astros. Another couple of good games. Then it just looked like he's fallen apart. It's not entirely matchup dependent because he did have a game against the Twins where he was, okay, but not really very good. This is a spot, though. This is a spot for Cease where, they just faced the Oakland A's for 3 or 4 days. Now they get a real-life pitcher coming into Kauffman Stadium. So I don't know that I'm going to get to Cease, but I'm not all that interested in Kansas City bats either.
Yeah, Cease is a guy I can't really figure out. I know last year was super lucky with his BABIP that seems to be regressing quickly. Like that plus the walks is just scary at 10K. But yeah, I mean, I think what would make the Royals, a better play on this slate than most is like DC was saying, we don't have the Braves on this slate. We don't have team totals, at 5.5 plus. Saber actually has the Royals team total pretty close to the Yankees. So keep that in mind. Let's keep moving. Let's go to UDC. We got the Dodgers in Milwaukee. I would be surprised if the roof is open based on the weather here in Chicago. We talked about liking Peralta a bit. The Dodgers put out kind of a strange lineup if you pull that up. I think we have Hayward hitting third. And then on the other side, Gonsolin hasn't really gone deep, and he's been bad. The times that I've used the Brewers this season have been against right-handed pitching. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one. You can't make the case for Gonsolin. He just hasn't looked good since returning from injury. He's a fade for me. So if you do want to go against him, I don't mind it with the Brewers bats. Obviously, pretty good bullpen for the Dodgers, but they could do enough damage against Gonsolin that maybe they don't get the good arms out of the Dodgers pen. Prefer the lefties. Rowdy Tellez would be the top of my list for the Brewers. Christian Yelich is up there. Neither guy particularly cheap, but it is a pretty tough slate, like we said, for hitting. There's not that many good spots. So, yeah, I do like the Brewers a little bit. I like the Dodgers bats, too. Freddie Peralta, you do want the lefty power against him. I think has the most chance to do damage. And, the Dodgers certainly have some of that. Freeman, Muncy, James Outman would be my top three. Of course, you got Mookie Betts at the top. Slow start for him, but, he'll turn it around when it's all said and done. And the Brewers bullpen has been really, really bad too, outside of the couple back end arms, of course, led by their closer, Devin Williams. But other than that, not a lot of talent. I do like that they're on the road, roof closed. It'll play as a home run park. And yeah, Freddie Peralta, he kind of reminds me of Dylan Cease a little bit, where you just really talented guy, but you never know what you're going to get out of him on a night-to-night basis. I don't think, either Cease or Peralta knows what they're going to give you on a night-to-night basis. So, yeah, I think the Dodgers are another interesting contrarian stack. I actually think there's quite a few of them tonight, right? There's no teams, I don't think, that really stand out as like must-plays, can't-miss stacks. And on those nights, at least for me, I want to get a little bit of against the grain if I'm not feeling super confident about any one team. Give me some of the low-owned teams. And I don't know if that many people are going to use Freddie Peralta, but I think most people will just see him, and not really click on the Dodgers all that much is kind of the way I see the ownership breaking down here. So, yeah, I like the Dodgers side a little bit better than the Brewers, but I do think this is one where you could go to either offense if you wanted to get a contrarian stack in there.
Yeah, on slates like this, if you have conviction on one of these decent offenses that's not going to be owned, I would just
Yeah.
ride with it. I put the Dodgers in the playbook. I don't love the lineup, but yeah, like you said, the Brewers pen hasn't been as good as usual. JT, any interest in bats here?
No, not really. I have some interest in Peralta. Don't have interest in Gonsolin, but that Dodgers bullpen is enough to make me not want to go ahead and roster anybody from Milwaukee. If I was doing anything, it might be, mini stacks of the Dodgers as, even if Peralta's on his game, he could give up a bomb or two, but not going to be a ton of Dodgers in my lineups tonight.
Well, real quick final note here on the Brewers pen, which I have mentioned has been bad. They just have, unless they made a change today, I believe they just have one left-handed pitcher in the pen in general, Hobie Milner, who has pitched in 2 of the last 3 days, including yesterday. Don't know if he's available or not, but potentially not, right? Sometimes they don't want to use pitchers 3 out of 4 days. So could be all righties in play for the Brewers, which obviously would be a boost to those Dodgers lefties if you did want to go in that direction.
Yeah, that's a great point, and we have another one of those later in the slate that we'll bring up.
Yep.
Let's go to the game in Wrigley. I think this will be a quick one for bats. We'll go right back to you, DC. Any interest here? Cool with winds blowing in here.
Nah, we sound like a broken record, I think, with these Wrigley win games. But it's just a team where or a park rather, where the weather kind of dictates whether you're going to go there. On nights like tonight, it plays as essentially the hardest park to hit in. And if it was 80 and the wind was reversed, 11 mile per hour out instead of in, it would be the best hitters park on the entire slate. So that's just the way it is with Wrigley Field. And 2 pitchers I don't love, but Michaelis, Stroman, I think they'll do enough. Keep the ball in the yard, and I'll be surprised if it's Brewers or Cardinals that are end up on the winner tonight.
Yeah, same here. I pretty much have actively avoided the Cardinals for the last couple of weeks anyways, JT. Any interest in bats here, or should we just keep it moving?
No, interest in the pitchers. Probably won't be playing a single bat from this game.
All right, well, let's go right back to you, since it sounded like you had some interest in the Astros tonight. They're in LA. Sneaky good hitters park since they changed those fences a couple seasons ago. What are your thoughts on this game here?
Yeah, I was a believer on Patrick Sandoval before the season. I still think he has an opportunity to be a good pitcher, but I think this is a really tough matchup for him. The Astros looking like they were at least getting it back together a little bit in this series up in Seattle. A couple of really, really good series. Another really good baseball series up there, back and forth, runs scored on both sides. And I do like the Astros a little bit here. Not a whole lot of interest in the Angels or really, any team. I know that the Mariners had some success against this Astros bullpen, but I think that's going to be the exception rather than the norm. So some interest in Hunter Brown and then some interest in the Astros here.
Yeah, I'm on Hunter Brown personally, so I won't be playing any Angels. I think the Astros are interesting. That Angels pen is just really bad right now. But the Astros are kind of scuffling as a whole with the bats. That Jose Abreu pickup has been just completely terrible. I think I saw a stat earlier. He has the lowest WRC plus in all of baseball against left-handed pitching. So that's not good, especially since Yuli is hitting a bit for the Marlins. We'll go to UDC. Any thoughts on bats in this game? Decent hitting weather out west compared to the rest of the country.
Yeah, someone needs to tell Dusty Baker he's not required to hit Jose Abreu clean up every single game, and you could flip Kyle Tucker with them at any point if you,
I've been banging the drum for that for a while.
Like 5 years with Kyle Tucker down there. But, this Astros lineup, I mean, obviously you've got Alvarez and Tucker. Even Alvarez he's cooled off a little bit, right? Since he had that kind of neck injury. Obviously still a great hitter overall, but against the lefty Sandoval, I think Sandoval's been really tough at limiting home runs to left-handed hitters over the last couple seasons. So I don't love Alvarez and Tucker. And, like Alex Bregman, I try not to play him for the most part when he's not at home, because he kind of needs those short Crawford boxes where it hits all his home runs, because he doesn't have a ton of power. So yeah, it's kind of hard for me to get excited about most of this Astros lineup, frankly. So I don't find myself going there. I get it against Sandoval, who's looked pretty mediocre so far, but yeah, I find myself a little bit less than enthused on the Astros. Not going to the Angels much either, with the exception of Shohei Ohtani against Hunter Brown. Obviously, the platoon advantage there. He's one of the guys where if you are, taking the risk, like I will on some lineups, of playing Sears or playing Braxton Garrett, get yourself up to a Shohei Ohtani, which most people won't be able to do. He'll be really low owned. Obviously, he's got as much or more upside, I think, of anyone on the slate. 6,400, one of those where, yeah, you kind of, you're hoping for the big 30 spot that nobody else has, right? And it kind of justifies paying down a pitcher. So I will have some Shohei Ohtani on those types of teams, but not going with the Angels stack or anything like that.
Yeah, I will say on the Astros, they're expected to get both Brantley and Chas McCormick back before the weekend. So hopefully that'll inject some life.
Michael Brantley, get some singles. That'll get him going.
I mean, better than the guys they have at the bottom of the order right now, that's for sure. Yeah. So we got 3 games left. JT, we're at 153 likes. What do you think that we have to get to give away the plays of the day with 3 West Coast games left here?
It's got to be 250.
We got 470 people watching.
Yeah.
150 likes. So yes, so we need to get 100 more likes if you want the plays of the day. If not, we're going to put them in the Run Pure Sports Discord, where it looks like everyone's already starting to give their favorite stacks of the day and bullshitting around in there. So I'm sure it'll be another fun evening in the baseball Discord at Run Pure. Let's keep moving. I think the West Coast games are way more interesting than usual on the slate, just because of the low team totals on the East Coast. We'll go to you, DC. Here we've got Texas is in Seattle. You talked about how you liked Gilbert here, but what about the Seattle bats? John Gray has not looked great this season, and the Texas bullpen is in complete shambles.
Yeah, have you done a deep dive on John Gray, either of you guys? I mean, he has been not great, like you said. I really haven't looked super close into him. I haven't played him much, or I just got him kind of avoiding that whole scenario. I'll do a real quick here when you guys talk about this game. But yeah, I do think given Gray's struggles, this Mariners lineup I think is sneaky. I really like the lefties, Kalanick, and of course the big dumper, Cal Raleigh, I think are both good plays. I do think given Gray's struggles, you can certainly go with a full-on 5-man Seattle stack. Seems more than reasonable to me here. I think Gilbert, yeah, I mean, I mentioned he's definitely in play, right? He has to be. He's a minus 170 favorite. Texas sitting there with a 3.3 team total. But, I don't know. People were kind of talking up Gilbert after the Chicago Cubs start, kind of in the middle of April, thinking he had turned over a new leaf. And I was like, man, I don't really see it with Gilbert. I kind of think he's just the same dude that he's been the last couple of years, which is a good pitcher, right? He's not a bad pitcher by any means. And I do like that he's pitching at home. But I just don't think he's a super high upside guy right now. And we've seen Texas – they ended Zach Gallen's 28-inning scoreless streak. You look at the lineup, and the names maybe don't impress you the most, but they've been really productive against right-hand pitching so far this year. And, yeah, 9K Gilbert, kind of tough for me to get excited about. Again, I don't love the pitching on the slate in general, but I've definitely got Gilbert, full tier below Zach Gallen. For me, it sounds like you guys are on the same page, where it's not really particularly close between the two. I do think it'll be kind of close when it comes down to ownership, which obviously we kind of got to like that if our guy that we like much better is going to be lower owned. But yeah, if you wanted to we kind of talked about the A's as a potential contrarian stack. I don't like the Rangers quite as much, but I don't think Gilbert is infallible. And I do think this slate, it's possible, 7-8 runs from your stack could be enough to get to the winner's circle tonight. So you don't have to have the massive blow up upside to go to a contrarian stack, which is why I kind of like it. So I wouldn't hate it with Texas, obviously, you're doing it to get different for the most part. And then, yeah, Seattle side does look pretty good to me against John Gray. I'll take a look at John Gray while you guys are talking, see if I can see anything about him.
Yeah, JT, I really like Seattle here. I've been watching a lot of the Rangers games. They're just trying to find anyone to come out of the pen to get outs lately. And with the struggles of Gray, I think that they could get there early. What do you think for bats in this game here?
Yeah, I have some interest on the Seattle side. And, Texas, I mean, man, again, I'm a little bit torn because of how well they played in Anaheim. I think that you would look at it and say, well, I'm going to have to play them. Logan Gilbert's overpriced. But, man, this is such a different matchup for them. Gilbert is, I think, a much better starting pitcher. Maybe outside of Reed Detmers. I don't think Detmers quite at Gilbert's level, but they still put the bat on the ball against Detmers, right? And Detmers has been a little bit off to start the season here for the most part. But once you get into that Seattle bullpen, I mean, that bullpen is really very good. Obviously had some struggles against the Astros this weekend, but it's just not my favorite spot here for Texas. Although I'll probably end up playing some of them mini stacks, but definitely some interest in Seattle here as a full stack for the reasons that you talked about.
Yeah, I will mention for Seattle, Julio Rodriguez has been really cold. Good series for him to get back on track here. He remains expensive on DK, but Texas is fairly easy to run on, and I think this could be the spot where he kind of turns it around after scuffling for a couple weeks. We've got 2 more games left here, and we are at 195 likes. We need 55 more if you want the Eiffel Tower play of the day, the Mom's Basement play of the day, and my nameless play of the day because I'm rarely on the free shows. So let's keep going here. We got Miami in Arizona. DC, you talked about liking Garrett a bit. We're definitely not playing Miami bats. They looked awful despite the good weather here in Chicago over the weekend. I'll go to UDC for Arizona. You said that you did like Garrett a bit, but if you weren't playing Garrett, we have a decent team total here for the Diamondbacks. And I will say Miami's pen, even though Sandy went deep yesterday, was really, really taxed over the weekend.
Yeah, I do want to be clear, I guess, just clarify on Braxton Garrett. It's more of a price play, a contrarian play, a play that I don't love the slate necessarily, than it is like some hot take that Braxton Garrett's going to go out and throw a shutout. I don't think that. I just think he's got a better chance at 15 fantasy points tonight than his ownership and price reflect. That's all it is with Garrett for me. I'm not going crazy with it, but I will have a share or two of him on my 10 lineups. But yeah, Zach Gallen, we talked a bunch about him. Obviously, when we went through pitching, sounds like he's the number one guy for all of us. I don't think we have a Marlins lineup yet, but there's nothing they could put out. I don't think that would change that for me. So yeah, Zach Gallen locked in as my SP1 today. I'm not going to pick anyone against him. I don't think if you wanted to, Chisholm, Luis Arraez, even Jorge Soler would be okay one-offs. But I don't think I'm going to end up, going there myself. And yeah, I mean, listen, I think a lot of people will go to Arizona. Second highest team total on this slate. Braxton Garrett just got absolutely nuked by the Atlanta Braves, give up 11 earned runs. They just were, I don't know, JT, you probably watched that game. They were just absolutely teeing off on Braxton Garrett. But it's the Braves, right? I mean, like if you're going to give anyone, especially a lefty, a pass, the Braves are like the top of my list. And yeah, I do think Garrett's got a decent chance to bounce back. Of course, though, the right-handed power here looks good. I mean, Christian Walker's coming around. You've got Ketel Marte, who has historically swung a better bat from the right side. Lourdes Gurriel looks pretty good recently. And then, of course, Corbin Carroll, right? You can play him, I think, against anybody. Just looks like an absolute stud to meet power and speed. So, yeah, I get it with Arizona. I'll probably be lower on them than the field, but absolutely you can make a case for the stacks here. We saw the Braves. I mean, they were just crushing the ball off Garrett. What did he give up? 4 home runs in 4 1/3 innings.
They left him to die in that
They
game.
did, yeah. And die he did indeed.
And he did. He complied with it, yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't believe they kept sending him back out there inning after inning. But, yeah, I mean, obviously Diamondbacks have plenty of power from the right side too, so they could absolutely get to Garrett here.
I do prefer using the Diamondbacks against righties, but I do like the spot here. Christian Walker's been just smoking the ball ever since I dropped him in my main high stakes league. Lourdes Gurriel, like you said, has come around after a slow start of the season. He's smoking the ball. I will say, if you stack these guys up, please use Emmanuel Rivera over Evan Longoria at third, because there are two options there. JT, we'll go to you. Thoughts on the Snakes bats here?
Yeah, I like Arizona here. I mean, Garrett, even in his better starts, has been just decent. There's not a lot of strikeouts here in this Arizona lineup. So I like them here a little bit. I actually didn't watch that Braves game because the Miami games are off the main slate.
No.
So I remember because I was sitting here, I was like, oh, another home run. Nice. As I'm doing my lineup for the main slate. And then I just ended up tilted that I couldn't have played them on that day. Probably would have. But, yeah, I mean, I like Arizona a little bit here. I'm not going to have any Miami bats. I mean, no one-offs, no nothing. If for some reason they get to Zach Gallen, then it's just not going to be my night, and I'm accepting of that. So, yeah, nothing on that side for me.
Yeah, as we're talking more and more on the slate, I'm debating locking Gallen in my 20 lineups more and more. It's such a great spot. Let's go to last game here. We need 35 more likes. I'm not sure if they're going to get there. Interesting spot here, JT. The Nats are in San Francisco. San Francisco has been an odd team this year. You know, all of their powers left-handed for the most part. We've got I don't even remember his first name. Irvin is starting for the Nats. They basically called him up because everyone else is hurt and or really, really bad. He's definitely not ready for the major leagues, according to my sources in DC. And as I was perusing the slate, DC can confirm this, but I don't think the Nats have a lefty in the bullpen.
Correct.
So really, really good spot for the Giants on a slate where there aren't that many high team totals. JT, are you interested in some Giants bats here?
Yes and no. I mean, this team is very annoying. However, strictly by numbers, ISO, weighted runs creation plus, strikeouts too, but Irvin isn't going to be the type of guy that strikes a bunch of guys out. They're the number one offense on paper tonight in what they do against right-handed pitching. You know that the Nats bullpen is certainly not as bad as the Reds or the A's or the White Sox or even the Marlins have been, but you're not worried about a shutdown bullpen here. So I think you have to have interest in the Giants. There's going to be some ownership there that comes with these guys. But, you know, I mean, I do have a little bit of interest in the Nationals here, as well as I have a little bit of interest in DeSclafani. Now, DeSclafani has been pitching well this season. He's always been a good pitcher, but he's always had issues with left-handed bats. And the Nats are going to toss out here 5 or 6 left-handed bats in this lineup. They're not guys that you would ordinarily get super excited to play. Certainly I'm not excited to play Dominic Smith, but Luis Garcia has looked like he's turning into a decent, maybe better than decent, everyday left-handed hitter. CJ Abrams has finally started to show some promise as an offensive player. So I'm torn on going heavy on DeSclafani, even though a projection source that I think so far this season has been one of the best in the industry. It's been our very own projections done by El Captain. So I think for me, I like DeSclafani, but I wouldn't mind taking some chances on some of these left-handed bats in Washington's lineup as well. And then I do think you just have to have interest in San Francisco tonight. As difficult as it is, maybe it's a little bit more comforting to play them knowing that maybe, because you actually never know what Gabe Kapler is going to do, but maybe you won't see the lefty-righty pinch hitting effort start in the 4th inning tonight.
It would be just classic for Kapler to start pinch hitting guys with no lefties coming in, DC. God, I hate Gabe Kapler. Yeah, so DC, let's get your thoughts here. The lineup, or the expected lineup at least, looks pretty good to me for the Giants. The revelation for them has been Estrada. He's just been mashing the ball, stealing some bags. He's expensive on DK. Maybe that has less people on him here. What are your thoughts on the Giants in this spot?
Yeah, first of all, get the likes up, people. We got the last game here. I know we're getting pretty close, but we do need a few more to push it home, get the plays today. We're here hanging out with you on Monday afternoon, free show. Least you can do is hit the goddamn like button. So there you go. The one DC rant per month. Back to this game. Yeah, I mean, I said I do like Desclafani. I do think he's one of the safer options. I don't think he's going to, strike out a bunch of batters. It's not his game, and that's not really Washington's game either. But I do think he's got a good chance to go 6 or 7 innings in this game, probably pick up a win on this slate. I think that should be enough to be a top, at worst 5 and maybe top 2 pitchers. So yeah, I do like Desclafani quite a bit. The Giants, you got to like him. Like we mentioned, no lefties, we don't think, at least in the Nationals pen. That should mean, keyword should, that especially the lefties should be safe here, right? Lamont Wade, Jock Peterson, Michael Conforto. We'll see. We don't have the lineup yet for them, but I really like Wade. He'll be leading off tonight almost certainly. He's been swinging a good bat all season, 3,200. I think he's a fun play. He'll be obviously very popular as well, dual position eligibility as well. You mentioned Estrada. Man, I didn't see this big season come for him, but he's been awesome. 5,300 feels like a pretty steep price tag for him, but it's weird. You don't often say, the best hitting spot of the night once you consider pitcher and all that is in San Francisco, but I think you can make a pretty good case for it tonight, like JT said on paper. Looks like a good spot for San Francisco. So I do prefer the lefties in general. The right-handed bats, like Estrada's not coming out, but the rest of these guys, it wouldn't shock me, right, if they think the matchup is like better against Irvin than it is against whatever relievers in the game at the time. I don't know. It's Gabe Kapler. You never know. But yeah, I do prefer the lefties. Steve, you mentioned Jake Irvin, like not ready for the big leagues. I just don't think he's ever going to be ready for the big. It just doesn't seem like a big league caliber arm, right? He's just out there to try to eat some innings and get through it. I mean, he's had an ERA over 5 at AA, AAA as a 26, 25-year-old last couple of years. So, yeah, Giants should do damage here. They should get into the Nationals bullpen early, who I don't think they've had a day off in like 6 or 7 days now, for sure, at least 5. And these guys, it's not like the National starters are going deep into games on the regular. So their bullpen is bad. It's all right-handed. It's been heavily taxed. And, yeah, I think the Giants could explode into life. Even if they start slow, I wouldn't be surprised to see them put up some big crooked numbers in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th innings here. So, yeah, I like the Giants quite a bit. I think you can make a case for them for number 1 stack. It's hard to say for sure until we get their lineup, but yeah, you got to be in on the Giants tonight.
All right, well let's go right into stacks. We got a couple minutes left here. We'll go to you, JT. Kind of an odd slate for top stacks because the team totals are kind of middling. So we'll go to you to offer your top 2 or 3 stacks here on the night.
Yeah, I'll go with San Francisco, Houston. I'm going to go with the Oakland A's third.
Love the A's. I checked while we were off, 9 righties in that lineup against Nestor. DC, how about you? Top 2 or 3 stacks that you like on this tough slate?
Yeah, we'll go a little bit off the board today. I like the Dodgers, the Royals, and the Giants. But yeah, the A's. Yeah,
Always tomorrow.
If JT wouldn't have said the A's, I would have made sure to include it.
Giants, Royals, Oakland. We might as well just unregister now. This is great.
I mean, you got to stack somebody.
I'll go with the Mariners. I really like the Mariners here. Texas bullpen, like I said, they just don't have any answers, and lots of pop in that Seattle lineup. I do like the Giants a good bit and the Snakes as well. So those are my top 3. Let me check our likes here. 260. They did it for you, JT. We'll go with the Eiffel Tower play of the day for you here. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go contrarian here. As you guys know, I don't know. Well, I know, Steve, yesterday I was on the Rockies Just liked the opportunity of picking on a pitcher that clearly wasn't going to go deep. That was a mediocre at best big league pitcher and was getting just a ton of crazy ownership. Nestor Cortez, a much better pitcher than Joey Lucchesi is ever going to be. But I think that we may have seen his ceiling last season. The strikeouts are going to be low, and I think there's some power here. We've seen that there's some power in this Oakland lineup. I'm not getting crazy with the A's, but one guy that I am going to bump his projection considerably, one of two guys on the A's, but I'll give you this guy. It's Brent Rooker. Really impressed with his start so far this season. And even if you go back to the last several seasons, Cortez has struggled against these low strikeout teams. And I think this is a spot here where maybe you can play both sides of this game. But I do feel pretty excited to take a contrarian stance and attack the highest owned pitcher on the slate.
Awesome slate where we're excited to play Oakland. DC will go to you for the mom's basement play of the day.
Yeah, we'll keep it contrarian along with JT. I think on this particular slate, it's a good way to be. I want to have low-owned guys on a slate where we're frankly not that excited, it seems like, about any of these offenses. So I'll go to the Royals against what I think will be a popular Dylan Cease. He's a fly ball pitcher. Obviously, I think he could get into trouble here with the walks, but I think Vinny Pasquantino, 3,700. His numbers are somewhat modest so far to start this year, but he is a guy that I think is going to come on in a big way sooner rather than later. I like that price tag at 3,700. He can hit lefties if they bring one out of the pen. And I think you can get to Dylan Cease in this White Sox bullpen tonight. Vinny Pasquantino, mom's basement, play of the day.
All right. I do not have a graphic, but my play of the day is going to be Christian Walker at first base for Arizona. Kind of a lefty mashing specialist there in the heart of the Snakes order. Got off to a really, really slow start to the year, but has come on strong in the last week and a half or two. He's got 5 bombs in the last 10 games. I think he makes it 6 tonight against Garrett here. Odd slate for us overall. So, if you have conviction on a spot, really attack it here. I think that the three of us are kind of aligned with pitching. I'm hoping that when we open the slate, these guys like Nestor and Gilbert are higher owned, like the projections say, because I really like Gallen. I really like Hunter Brown. And a couple of these cheaper guys. Final thoughts here, JT, before we sign off?
No, excited for the Monday slate. Excited to go ahead and make some lineups now.
DC, any last thoughts here? If not, I will see you on the Friday Up to Lock show.
A little bit of I think a Monday slate here on Monday, but better ones coming up the next couple of days. Of course, we'll have the free shows, premium shows, all that stuff all week long. And, just because it's a little bit of a boring slate on paper, still all the money in the world up top. So hopefully we'll get some RPS logos at the top of the leaderboards tonight.
Yep, I'm expecting a wild slate tonight with some odd teams up top. So for JT, for DC, we will see you next time.